Cornell geneticists announced today they've isolated the gene that makes you eat the whole damn bag of chips.
Chris Daniel, afternoons, FM and AM on KMJ.
A new stomach pacemaker device has been developed that sends electrical signals to the stomach and brain to make a person feel full and help them lose weight. Hey, Bill, why don't you take the stairs once in a while? Nah, better put a robot inside of me.
Chris Daniel.
Get in my belly!
On KMJ.
Come on!
552, News Talk 580, 1059 KMJ. Chris Daniel here. Bill Tracy. Speaking of dying young and staying pretty, we welcome back, happily welcome back, the owner of Solar Negotiators. Our good friend Chris Moran is here. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Chris. How you doing?
Lines open. We do this once every 3 months, and it's your chance to have any solar question you want answered. 490-5858. We ask that, and this is, I've not heard the man not be able to answer a question, and I know he's honest enough to say he doesn't know, but I haven't heard it yet. But we do ask, sometimes you have second and third follow-up questions on subjects like this, so calling in early is better. 490-5858 if you're trying to do it yourself, DIY, you don't know what to do, you're confused, from whatever level you're at in terms of considering or buying or installing solar. This is the guy to answer it, and he even will recommend a competitor if that's what needs to be done. He's really he's held his word on this, so that's why he's back. 490-5858. But why did I say die young, stay pretty? I was talking and saying hi to him, but I was setting up the break, so I hadn't looked at Chris yet. We know each other quite well. And I turned, and you're a mess. What happened, man?
Oh, yeah, I had a little injury in the office, and it's wearing on my face. So
I thought you had lost a pretty good fight.
I know. You should see the other guy, I guess. Huh?
But those are carpet burns.
Yeah.
you hurt your back and you fell. And
I fell right on the carpet, and now
carpet burns.
Now I got the scar to show it.
Underrated pain,
tell
man.
You what.
They give you anything? You're rubbing something in there?
Some ibuprofen, just like in the Marines. Take a Motrin, you'll be fine.
Yeah, just keep taking more ibuprofen. Exactly. We can get you more kidneys.
Exactly. Right.
Chris, and we got calls coming in already, so I want to tackle this. It may, in the short time we have in this break, we may have to go to two of these, but there is really major news in the solar industry, and that is President Trump going with a very pro-America stance. He wants to impose what look to be some pretty crushing tariffs on the entire American solar industry as it pertains to imported solar panels.
Yeah, and there's a lot of kind of moving parts to this, and what Trump will do or not do is kind of speculation at this point.
Okay,
but it's kind of interesting how this kind of all came to be. The cost of solar has really come down rapidly in the last several years, and that's because
competition and better technology.
Absolutely, and there's a high demand. You have states like California that have mandates for renewables, and it's really driven, and the tax credit for solar has also driven the industry. But when you have a lot of imported solar panels, and they're getting better at making them, and they're making them more efficiently, the costs come down so much.
Right.
So a company called Suniva was an American-made manufacturer, and they filed for pretty much bankruptcy.
Right.
And they petitioned the International Trade Commission of the United States, stating that the U.S.-based manufacturing industry for solar had been harmed by these imported panels. And a few months ago, this is when it was filed, and even just the threat of that had some effect on solar panel pricing. But Friday, it was a 4-0 unanimous vote that they did, in fact, find, yes, there has been serious harm. And they actually specified specific countries like China and Korea, Taiwan. What's kind of ironic is the company who filed the petition, even though they manufacture in the U.S., it's a Chinese-owned company. so there's
wait a second. So they're cutting their own throats?
Well,
on this?
it's obviously the owners of that company are more focused.
But I mean,
on,
Americans are making those solar panels here in this country,
right?
Because the jobs are part of this, folks. If you haven't heard, they're saying 16,000 California jobs could be lost. 88,000 nationwide.
Well, the reason you have so much pushback on this is the fear is that if this gets decided by Trump, so next week they're going to look at remedies or how, what kind of recommended fix is there? Should it be a tariff, an import tax of X amount per watt or whatever it might be? And then it goes to Trump, and he has the final say. And what he will or won't do, I'm not going to speculate at this point, but the point is that there's a lot of people worried that there may be a decision trying to save a few thousand manufacturing jobs that could kill 100,000 construction jobs across the country. So when you have what they're talking about, it's like 40 cents a watt is a possibility as far as the tariff. On a megawatt project, that could increase your cost by $400,000. I mean, you can't really just absorb that. You know what I mean? So this could have a massive impact on the solar industry across the board. What's interesting is they're saying that the California residential market will be the least impacted. Part of the reason for that is when you look at competitive market pricing for residential solar, the gap is quite wide. You have some companies that are charging, at the top of the range, and you might have companies that are towards the bottom, and that differential might be $1 per watt, which if you're not in the solar industry, you may not know what that means. But there's room in there to absorb this amount of a tariff increase. But on the utility scale, this could kill projects that were years in the making across the country.
You mean like
overnight?
Solar farms and all that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So.
Whoa. All right. More on this in just a minute. And your calls, 490-5858. Sure like them earlier than later so that you can get all your questions in. Chris Moran is here from Solar Negotiators talking all things solar. We'll finish this story and take your calls when we get back from news in just a moment on KMJ.
Chris Daniel, afternoons, FM and AM on KMJ.
You don't have the word no very often, do you?
I hear it all the time, only it's more like, no, please, no, no.
Chris Daniel.
All right, we're back. Hour number 3. I'm Chris Daniel, along with Phil Teresi. We once again welcome our guest. Chris Moran is here from Solar Negotiators. He shows up every 3 months, and because solar changes and changes and changes and changes, and it's never quite the same scenario every time I talk to you. This could potentially be one of the biggest changes. As we were talking about before the break, callers, hang tight. I'll be right with you with your questions at 490-5858. President Trump is really considering imposing big tariffs for foreign-made solar panels that has, for a lot of people, driven the explosive growth. I mean, solar is on fire. The Solar Energy Industries Association said it could be 16,000 California jobs. That's a quarter of the California solar workforce. They claim 88,000 American jobs, a lot of sunny states, and then for some reason Massachusetts are begging to not to do this. 69 Republicans and Dems also urging commissioners against greenlighting these tariffs.
Yeah.
But if Trump, like you said, decides to do so, it is probably going to happen.
Well, and that's once again. I mean, everybody assumes, and he's publicly stated things like he wants to look at it imposing, tariffs on all sorts of things to make things more fair for America.
Right.
As a Marine, I'm all about American made, but in this case, there is a lot of evidence that shows that the harm that would come to the overall industry as far as jobs, the net job loss or gain would be huge if it takes place. And it's really going to come down to the October 3rd meeting that the ITC has to consider remedies. And they may say, hey, yes, there's been harm, but we don't have any kind of tariff recommendation to send to the president. So it's really it's up in the air right now. But, I mean, what's interesting, and without sounding like a solar company owner who wants people to buy solar, the assumption is always that the price of panels and such is going to go down and continue to go down. And in this case, it is very likely that they will go up. Even if it doesn't happen, the threat of this possibility will have...
So it reacts like a commodity.
It's exactly right. That's exactly right.
All right. Let me ask you this, because people who have been following solar, been interested in solar, been considering solar for years, whatever you are, I think after a while it becomes clear to a person that no industry has more moving parts in the final cost than solar, because of the rebates, because of all the incentives, because of all the various ways they change. And you're always saying, day to day things change on that, which means that you guys in the solar industry are good at finding proper bottom lines. You guys particularly are especially good at finding great bottom lines on this. Does that mean that the industry, even if you're using contractors or not, will absorb some of this cost to bring it down? Is there a way to dance around it at all? Well,
the private sector is really good at working around problems like this. So, I would expect there's a lot of good companies in this area and across the state that will find, additional improvements in efficiency in their own companies to try, mitigate some of these costs. And once again, until it happens, we're just kind of waiting. But this industry, you certainly have to stay on your toes. You certainly have to be informed, and you have to put a lot into making sure you retain the right people, and you're doing things efficiently. Otherwise, there's just a lot of opportunity for waste. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of absorption on the solar company's parts. On the residential side,
just to survive.
Right. On the commercial side, it's just going to kill a lot of business. It's just going to prevent a lot of projects from taking place.
So what I'm hearing between the article and what you're saying is it seems like there are more American jobs to be lost than it is worth the importation of
I would
foreign
certainly
panels.
say that that's my stance and my opinion, and there's a lot of folks in the industry who agree with me on that.
All right. What about Jerry? Jerry and his mandates. California's going to be the climate change leader.
Well,
he
he
can't let solar die.
Yeah, he signed legislation in 2015 that puts California on track to be at 50% renewable for the utility companies by 2030.
Right.
So they almost look at California as somewhat of kind of an island, if you will, that's insulated from a lot of this, in the fact that California has our mandates, and we're going to have to continue installing renewable energy. That's just, and it may just be more expensive, than it is currently. But across the country, I think all the evidence shows there's more jobs to be lost than gained for this specific decision.
Could it crater the industry to the point where it is unaffordable for most people?
It's doubtful that this increase because the labor costs aren't going to change.
Right.
The racking costs aren't going to change. And there's going to be some indirect consequences of this in other parts of the industry that have nothing to do with solar panel manufacturing. But once again, the market in California allows for this kind of increase a little bit more than, let's say, in Texas, where the utility rates are, so much lower. California just has such high rates that the numbers still pencil.
490-5850. I'd love to devote the rest of this time to you guys. Any questions you have about anything solar, Chris Moran can usually answer. 490-5858. We do ask to come in earlier than later. I've been saying that, but I haven't been doing it, so here we go. Ted, what's up?
Hi. I have a two-part question. I bought a home here in Fresno, and it had solar panels on it, and I assumed the lease, went through the whole gamut, and now I own them, if you will, or it's not a lease, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say the name of the company, but I buy the power from this company, and then whatever I don't use, it goes into a bank, and I store, and I can use it in the off-season and whatnot. I don't understand necessarily, other than what I just said, how it works, the differences between that and those that have leases and pay PG&E for that. And then my second question after that is, what is the truth about having to wash panels here in the Valley, and how often do you need to do it?
I'm happy to address those questions for you. So your first question in regards to what you're describing is what's called a power purchase agreement. It's one of the most commonly used financing mechanisms for solar, but it leans more to the lease side than it does on the ownership side. So a company will establish, hey, the utility company's charging you X amount per watt average. Let's say it's 25 cents, and we'll put solar on your roof, and we'll produce power and interconnect with the utility, put ourselves on your account, and we'll lock in a rate of, let's say, 16 cents per watt. You're going to save, 30%, zero money down, and you just do this for the next 20 years. Doesn't this make sense? And, if you look at it from a bird's eye view, you will save money compared to continuing to just pay the utility company.
Right.
But you don't get the benefits of the asset in the property. And if you ever sell and you're still in that term, typically you have to find a buyer who will absorb it or pay off the amount that's left on the term. And sometimes that can be
that's fun at closing
it
time.
cannot be it can kill some residential deals. However, in cases where, let's say, you have someone who doesn't have the ability to take advantage of the federal tax credit, let's say someone who's retired on a fixed income is going to live in the house for the next 25 years, and they have a $600 power bill because their house is older and bigger,
right.
And they can now cut their payment by 20 or 30% with no money down. That can make sense. And while we don't offer that at our company, it can make sense in some cases. Your second question on cleaning. So that's really a case by case. The bigger your solar system is, the more sense it makes to clean it if you're paying for it and to do it often. If you're doing it yourself, do it as often as you feel like getting up on your own roof and safely and cleaning your own panels. You don't want to use hard water, but clean solar panels can produce as much as 25 to 30% more than
and
dirty
it's
ones.
the inverters that we worry about, right?
As far as the
cleaning?
Cleaning?
Yeah, no, the cleaning's the panels.
The panels,
Yeah.
We just have such terrible air here. I mean, I love Fresno, but I breathe the air just like everybody else. And that can cake on those panels. And you really need some abrasive action to break up that film as it builds up. So I recommend to most homeowners that they clean their panels a minimum of once a year. And the larger your system, you may benefit from 2 to 4 times a year if you're paying for it. You go, and it's really, there's kind of a cleaning season. I'd say early summer, late spring, early summer through late summer, early fall is kind of your season. Outside of that, the days are getting shorter and you just don't get the same benefit. But when you have a big solar system that's producing 60 kilowatts a day and you clean the panels the next day, they're producing 80 kilowatts a day, and each kilowatt's worth 25 cents, you can really start to see the financial benefit of the cleaning. So it's a case by case, but you want to make sure you clean them at least once a year.
How do you get past the hard water problem?
We have a cleaning service company, Solar Maintenance Pros, a separate company from Solar Negotiators. It's a licensed contractor, and it focuses on long-term maintenance and cleaning. And we just use a filter. We have a filter on the truck that filters the water. And we actually use the customer's water. We hook up to their water, and we filter it through.
But you don't have to go buy a soft water system to get this.
Right, and you just replace the filters regularly.
Very cool. 490-5858-10. I hope that helped you out. Thank you for your call. Mike, you're on with Chris Moran from Solar Negotiators. What's up?
Hey, Chris.
Hey.
The question I have is, I see a lot of panels that are tilted up on the roofs now.
Yeah.
I kind of looked at my roof, and like 18 panels will fit on the west side of the west exposure of my roof. But I got these huge trees that are city owned that block from 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
And I was thinking, would it be best and cost effective to tilt those 18 panels on my west side up so that they're level to the ground?
The short answer,
lifting the angle more to a vertical, right?
Yeah, the short answer to your question is yes. If you have shade that you can't do anything about, solar panels don't like shade very much. And so even though western exposure is better than eastern exposure, and typically if you're tilting in the opposite direction, so you might go from west to east. Typically, you get a slightly better production on the west side than the east, and the cost of these tilts has gone down, and a lot of companies are very proficient at doing it. However, you may find that the 18 panels you can fit on the west side flush, you may only be able to fit 12 panels because of the shade that is created by the upper level panels.
Right.
So there's a couple things to consider there, but it is definitely more cost-effective and more beneficial for you to tilt them to the east than to just install them in the shade.
Can you add on if you tilt?
As long as there's space.
No, I mean, I was asking Mike if you could add on if he tilt. Mike?
Yeah, well, 18 panels is about, I got 18 panels on that west side, and then, there are 12 situated on some south, some east, some north.
Okay, so there's some compensation.
Fair enough.
Good. Thank you, brother. Appreciate your call. 490-5858. Kurt and Polo, hang tight. Lines open. Chris Moran from Solar Negotiators is with us for a while. If you've got solar questions of any kind, feel free to ask at 490-5858. Checking traffic. Mark Holstein.
And westbound 1. Chris Daniel, afternoons, FM and AM on KMJ.
What if these are like pet hoarders and they show up?
You are taking adequate care. I've taken possession.
I'm taking possession of your dog. Or they are recovering pet hoarders and this is just a fix. This sounds like an addiction.
You know what's wrong with it?
It's like people who like smelling baby.
It shouldn't be this vague.
Oh, that's a special crew, isn't it?
Yeah. Chris Daniel on KMJ.
Oh, my God. I hate your baby.
I'm a hard baby. Can't get enough of your
422 News Talk 580-1059 KMJ. Chris Daniel here with Chris Moran from Solar Negotiators. Want to remind you before we get back to calls over the next few weeks, $80,000 is up for grabs. Your shot at winning $1,000 4 times a day on 4K a day on KMJ is now. Just listen and text and win. For more details, click on KMJnow.com. And let's get back to it. 490-5858. All things solar. You only get this guy once in a while. If you want answers, here they are. And they're free. In Merced, Polo, what's up?
Hello. I have a system installed, and the only question I have, and I pretty much know quite a bit about solar, but my question is, how come we can't use our solar system during power outages?
Yeah, that's a very common question.
It just came up because of Hurricane Irma as well in Florida.
Yeah. So your solar system produces a 240 volt signal. I mean, electrical current, and it needs a 240 volt current to link to. So when the grid goes down, that connection is broken, and since there's nowhere for the solar production to go. When the grid is down, it's a safety feature. It shuts down. Otherwise, you'd have some real problems. So without
you could electrocute a guy trying to fix a line.
Yeah, troubleman who's working down the line. So the solution to that is a battery storage system, and the battery industry and awareness is growing rapidly. The cost is still quite high. There are incentives for it. Typically, in the middle of the city, there's not as much of a reason to go get a battery because the grid doesn't go down that often. But if you have other reasons for needing backup power, then a battery may be a very good
or you live in
investment.
My house.
Yeah, where you have a well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why you don't have access to your production when the grid is down.
And
okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Paulo. Thank you. I've sensed a little bit of a sea change with you. We've been talking for a couple of years.
Sure.
You seem to be leaning a little bit more positively to battery storage than you used to. Initially, you were rather against it.
Well, batteries are coming. I mean, that's you can't, and there's a lot of companies that are starting to raise awareness of batteries. I'm a proponent of a customer looking at what are my reasons for making this investment, because with how expensive they are, you can go onto Tesla's website right this second, and you'll see that their 14 kilowatt battery is $5,500. Plus install cost and such. So if you want to expend that money to have access to some electricity to power your fridge and a few lights and a few other small items, because you do have limits, if that's important to you, then yeah, absolutely. But the cost is still coming down quite quickly. So what I'm telling people is, unless you have a short-term need for batteries, you might want to wait a little bit longer to let the cost of those batteries come down.
Something that occurs to me here, for those of you who listen to KMJ regularly, you might notice this is a rather somewhat unusual situation in that I do solar negotiator commercials.
Yeah.
And
Thanks.
So do you.
We appreciate that.
And so do you. And we both work pretty hard on them. And you may have heard a solar negotiator commercial or two.
Once or twice. Yeah.
Once or twice this year. And one of the things that maybe we need to talk about a little bit more is I don't think people realize just how intricately custom a job a full solar job on your house is, even if you live in a house, little box's house where everybody's house is the same. Because nothing's the same.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the electrical side of the project, and you need to have a crew who knows what they're doing on top of the roof and penetrating your roof and sealing
Making
those.
the choice of how much power you want to generate,
all that
battery
stuff.
storage.
And when you add batteries, it adds a whole other element to the project, and because you have to have what's called a critical or protected load panel.
Yeah.
So you have to choose which loads are going to have power when the grid goes down. So I mean, that's where doing your research and really talking to someone who can give you objective feedback is important, because I don't want to say it's easy to make the wrong decision, but it kind of is. So, yeah.
All right. We will go to Selma. Kurt, you're on with Chris Moran.
Hey, Chris and Chris, great show.
Thank you.
I've always had a problem with PG&E gives me information on my solar usage and my line usage 3 times a day, like 2 days later. And my solar company gives me about the basic same information 24 hours later. So I was looking online for a device, and I kind of found one. It plugs into, it attaches to your main panel with current clamps, and it's called Sense, and it gives me an idea of what my instant power usage and generation of my solar.
Right.
I'm wondering if you were interested in those things. I looked at the TED, and it was just way too confusing and didn't do the thing.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing I think about the technology on this is if you were to walk into your office with a blindfold in the conference room, you could hear each person talking and you knew who was in the office. This unit does kind of the same thing. It knows when my coffee maker turns on and off.
Gotcha.
My hot tub turns on and off. So it's just for those out there that are having a hard time trying to monitor their system.
Well,
just for the instant knowledge of what I'm using, seems to be a great device.
Yes, and it's interesting. If you go to like a solar trade show, you'll see that there's kind of a little sub-market growing for these kinds of hardware components that go directly into the panel, because there's a lot of confusion. And some people they have no problem interpreting the difference between their production and their consumption, but sometimes it's not fun going through and doing all that math by taking the smart meter data and your production data and trying to figure out the difference. There are some companies that are starting to develop software programs that connect directly to the utility and your solar inverter. If you want to give us a call offline, I can point you in the right direction. But what you're describing is that customers just don't have very much visibility in what's being used, and there's a lot of devices that meet the description you're describing. But it's certainly kind of a growing demand as more and more solar systems go in. More and more people want to know what in the heck is going on with their power usage.
Kurt, how long have you been making coffee in your hot tub?
Well, sometimes you just need that kick.
There you go.
Hey, guys, have a great day. Thank you.
Yeah, nothing like brown water in a hot tub. Boy, that really gets the wife to jump in.
Right?
Yeah. All right, 490-5858. We will take this question because I think it's a quick one here. Guys, sooner than later now for your solar questions, because we have limited time with Chris Moran from Solar Negotiators. This is free advice, by the way, 490-5858. We do have one more segment. Please get your solar questions in now. If something's driving you nuts or just doesn't seem right, talk to Chris. He's got the answers. Real quickly, Devin in Fresno. Hi, Devin.
Yeah, I got a question. I heard you talking about hard water and the effect on the panels. I've got a 36-panel ground mount, and I'm out in the country, and I wish I could get away with cleaning it 2 or 3 times a year. But this time of the year, it's usually 3 times a month because of all the dust.
Sure.
Wow.
And I do, sometimes I will scrub it and squeegee. Sometimes I'll go out and hose it off. But you guys came out and did your annual cleaning here about a couple months ago, one of your services, and the guy was telling me to use Solar Bright, and he said you just sponge it on and hose it off, and it'll break up the
hard water
problem. So I was just wondering if that's something I could use to, do it, clean it in 15 minutes rather than take an hour and a half.
I mean, any as with tempered glass, and if you have any kind of calcium or mineral buildup, as long as it's approved for solar panels, I would say you're perfectly safe doing that. And if you're putting in the elbow grease to do this yourself, I don't see how that would hurt in any way. The problem oftentimes is that when you have people, they'll spray it on and then they'll let it puddle. And it's not usually as big of a problem with tilted solar panels because the gravity pulls it down. But if they're a real mild pitch,
right,
that's when you can have problems. So I would say keep cleaning those panels because it'll help your production. But a product made for solar panels, I'd say you're probably pretty safe.
Good job. All right, thank you, man. Calls coming in now. We'll be on them in just a moment. I'm talking about ground mounts as well because a lot of people have had those questions a lot lately, especially in the country. I know I did. 490-5858 as we check news with Aaron Abadia on KMJ.
Chris Daniel, afternoons, FM and AM.
You'll be fine.
On KMJ.
The zombies are coming, so I've been thinking about getting a gun.
Oh, my God.
I know people don't like it, but you got to. What am I supposed to get a windmill, right? And start growing zucchini? And then what? All I'm doing is just growing that for the strongest guy in the block,
Chris Daniel.
This is why the pumpkin didn't work.
On KMJ.
Back to the sunshine. And Chris Moran is here, owner of Solar Negotiators. You've heard him many times, and he is kind enough to come in about 4 times a year.
As often as you'll have me.
And break down the myriad questions everybody seems to have about solar. And you guys never stop surprising me with the questions either. We've done this a couple of years now.
Good questions.
Yeah. If you want an answer, Chris will answer it, even if it means recommending a competitor, although he doesn't make a habit out of that. He has done it, and I really appreciate that. Here in Fresno, Diana, starting to look. What's up, Diana?
Help me.
Oh, no.
Oh, my God. I lived in my home. I built my house 32 years ago. My PG&E bill was $28 to $32 a month. We're 2 old people now. I have no pool, no nothing. 1,700 square feet. My PG&E bill now is anywhere from $500 to $600 a month.
Whew. Yeah. I think that with a bill, typically when people have, is that just in the summertime, or did they go down in spring and fall?
Hell no.
Oh.
They even tried to charge me for gas, and I'm on propane.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, if you have $500 or $600 a month in average bill, with kind of where the pricing is these days, I think you have an opportunity to save. Well, first of all, probably get that bill down to about $15 a month with the minimum charges. And if you're not paying,
good Lord.
Yeah, if you're not paying cash, because even if people have cash to buy solar, it doesn't always mean they want to use it. Most people finance, and typically, with a no money down option, you might be able to get a term of 10 or 15 or 20 years where your monthly payment for that solar might be $300 or even less. So you could potentially save.
See, that's where I've put on the brakes simply because my house is paid for.
Yeah.
I'm 5 years away from retiring, and I don't want 30 years of payment.
Well,
however, I'm paying 30 years for PG&E now.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. I got to stop you both here. Have you done an honest assessment of your usage at this point? I mean, do you run on that sucker at 66 all day long?
I called PG&E. I've been on the phone with them. I said, why is it so high? Well, let's walk through and turn your well off, turn your air conditioner off, turn your
stop living your life
off.
the way you used to.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Okay. I had to ask.
No, and that's fair. And we get that concern a lot. People don't want to take on debt. And that's where I kind of have a conversation. So you're already in debt to the power company. It's kind of like an interest-only loan. And every check you write every month, you have nothing to show for it other than the lights are still on. You know what I mean? Woo! So, and if oftentimes I have folks who are close to retirement, there are options that exist for, as low as 1.99% fixed interest rates for 5 years where, the monthly payment may be close to what your power bill is now, but in 5 years you're free and clear, you're done, and you're experiencing savings for the long term when you're doing, when you're in retirement, which is when you really want to control your monthly costs. So I would say call a few local companies. We'd love to help you, but call around and check with a few. You may find that there's an option out there that would fit your goals just right.
Well,
and
if you could hit me with some names right now or whatever I need to do, I will do that tomorrow.
Solar Negotiators. 1-800 own solar. 844 own solar. Sorry. 1-844 own solar.
Give us a call, and I always recommend you double check your price.
Oh, you know what? You have my number now, so you guys can call me, and I will accept that call. I guarantee it.
Do we actually have her number anymore, Philip, or what? You got it. Okay, there. All right, we're gonna grab your number. We're gonna have Chris give you a call.
Absolutely.
Thank you so
All right.
much.
Yeah, you're welcome, Diana. You're welcome. That's gonna be a fun afternoon for you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Got some homework after this.
Yeah, you do. Javier in Clovis. Hi.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good.
Good. Did she mention the pot farm she had out back?
We're just trying to roll over that soft wave right now, man.
So, hey, real quick question. I've had solar now for 3 years. Absolutely love it. The only thing with myself is that tax credit. I'm still sitting on it. I couldn't use it last year because I was self-employed. But what exactly? It's because it's not like where at the end of the year, here's your money back for your solar. No, it's a credit. So does it go towards your federal? Is there a certain line you use it on? What is it?
Yeah, no, that's fair. And this is the part where I always say, please consult with a tax professional. But what we've found in our experience, and the way you might, if you were to look online, you might find that it really just goes against your tax liability. And oftentimes, self-employed folks, that's a really heavy 40% self-employment tax rate. So you have to find as many write-offs as you can, and oftentimes that limits your tax liability. You might find as well online that that tax credit should roll over. As long as the tax credit is still in effect, and it's going to be in effect
it does.
Well through 2021. So But do you do your own taxes, or do you do them online? Or
no, I have a tax guy. I'm just trying to figure out how exactly So I know you're not. I get it. You're not
right. Of course.
So just hypothetically speaking, say you do at the end of the year owe $8,000 in federal taxes. Does that can that go towards that or a percentage? Or
Yeah.
that's where I'm getting
That's
at.
what
and it's confusing.
That's what it's meant for, is to offset your federal tax load. Some people have already paid their taxes through a withholding, through their paycheck, and by the time they file, they get money back, but someone like yourself might not pay until you file, and if you find that you owe, that tax credit should assist you in lowering that by whatever the dollar amount is of the tax credit. So, if you have an $8,000 tax credit and an $8,000 tax liability, it should be a wash.
Excellent. Thanks, boys.
All right, Javier. See ya. Thanks, man. 490-5858. I don't think we've had this one, at least in a while. On the road, Joe, hi, you're on with Chris Moran.
Yes. Hey, thanks for taking my call. I had a question. It's kind of after the fact. I bought a solar system, a rather big one, a 60-panel one. It was $50,000. Yeah. Yes. But then you got to realize I was having $1,200 electric bills in the summertime.
That sounds about right.
I got an old air conditioner so I had to put in a solar system that will take care of my old pool pumps and my old air conditioner, and now I'm going to change the air conditioner. I already changed the pool pump, so hopefully in the long run I'll be making more than I'm using.
Yeah.
That's the idea. Anyway, my question is, that's a 15-year loan. My payments are $340 a month.
Okay.
Which, that's a pretty good trade.
Better than $1,200. Yeah.
Absolutely, and it's mine. I bought it. I didn't lease it up.
Exactly.
My question is, in 15 years, am I going to need a new one because this thing's so out of dated with the new technology? What's your opinion on that?
That's another question I get quite a bit.
The inverters change, the panels don't.
You may need to replace an inverter. Did you use microinverters, or do you know if you used a string inverter, or maybe a
Yes, the microinverters. They're actually under the panels.
Yep.
They're under the panels.
Those will last you. They're warranted for 25 years, and they'll last that long. You have the occasional one that might fail, but it's under warranty. Your panels are going to degrade by about 0.5% a year, maybe a little more, 0.6% a year. So in year 15, you should still be producing between 85 and 90% of what you were in year 1. And the assumption is that everything in your house is getting more efficient as time goes by, like you just said, pool pump, AC, all those things get. So your degradation loss should keep up with the improvements you make in the home. So I would say absolutely not. That's when you're really getting the best return on your initial investment, is the fact that it's now paid off and it's still producing. It'll continue producing for decades. So there's no reason to need to upgrade it or anything like that. Now, you may double your usage if you get a couple electric cars or something like that. You may decide you want some extra, but there's no reason to be pulling that out. That's the marathon end line, is having it paid off and just enjoying the free cash flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're doing a good job. Plus, you take more than 60 panels, it's going to start getting darker outside, man.
I'll tell you what, there's no room for the kids to go up there and jump off the roof anymore.
Well, there's a plus, yeah. All right, I got to let you go on that one. Hey, quick question on that.
Sure.
I have no earthly idea how much a completely EV vehicle pulls off of, how much juice it uses at your house.
Sure. So it really comes down to how much kilowattage can it store and how efficient, how many miles per kilowatt is the vehicle getting. So An example might be like a Chevy Volt. The ones that were coming out 2 years ago, you could go about 50 miles on a battery, and a battery would hold 14 kilowatts. Okay. So if you're driving a full 50 miles every day, that's 14 kilowatts, and there are special rates for electric vehicles where you can charge them at night, and it's cheaper. So it comes down to, and I've done, if you're buying the power at peak rates and you're driving inefficiently in that car, it can be more expensive than just putting gas in it. But if you're charging it at the better rates at night and you're driving efficiently, then it obviously it can make a lot of sense. But you might have a Tesla that holds 40 kilowatts or 50 kilowatts, and I'm not sure.
Now you're adding up.
Right. It just depends on the car and how you drive.
Do you do those breakdowns for folks at all who are pre-existing?
For electric vehicles?
Somebody's got a Tesla in the driveway when they call you to come over. Are you breaking that down?
No, we'll kind of speak in generalities when it comes to electric vehicles, because we're not experts in the vehicle. We want to stay in our sandbox where we're comfortable and we know we can give good sound feedback.
All right. Last chance here, guys. Got time for a couple more. Glenn in Porterville, Dan in Clovis, hang tight. We will take a couple more questions. Chris Moran from Solar Negotiators. Not forgetting, we also have breaking news. If you have not heard, a Bullard High English teacher, 58-year-old Donald Mayhew, has been arrested for rape. We will give you the details in the KMJ News and with us in Hour 4 as well, as many as we have. Right now, 4:47, traffic time in Mark Holstein.
Yeah, traffic is heavy.
All right, a couple more minutes here with Chris Moran from Solar Negotiators on KMJ. And then we will move on to Hour 4. Let's get to our final two callers here. First in, first on. Dan in Clovis is next. Hey, Dan.
Hey, gentlemen. Real quick, so I bought a brand new Lennar home last year.
Okay.
I've been in there about a year, and like a lot of homes, it comes with my house comes with a 12-panel solar system.
Yeah.
And it's, it's no obligation other than it stays there for 20 years. I benefit 20%. So I'm just wondering, it's an 1,800 square foot home. My average bill, I think, with PG&E, anywhere from $60 to $100 a month, and same thing with the solar. It costs me anywhere from $60 to $100 a month.
Yeah.
I mean, it really cut down on my bill from where I used to be. It was average this time of year was $500-600 a month. So, is it really worth me adding another system on there so that I don't have a PG&E bill at all?
The answer to that question is going to depend on how long you're going to stay in the house. So, if you're going to be in the house,
not going anywhere.
Fair enough. So it comes down to whether you pay cash or you finance with, and you can get a tax credit even if there's a solar system already in the house. Once again, check with your tax professional. But you're going to pay that money to PG&E anyways. So the long term, the payback may be longer than a normal, let's say, initial investment for a standard home that doesn't have solar yet, where that payback may be 4 or 5 years. You might see 7 or 8 or 9. But it will eventually pay for itself, and you will cash flow positively on that. So if you know for sure you're not going anywhere and you're going to be there for 20 years, I would definitely at least take a look at it and look at some numbers.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
You are welcome, sir. We will go to Porterville. Glenn, you're on with Chris Moran.
Hi, Chris. Hey, wanted to let you know, first-time caller, long-time listener. Really enjoy the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Hey, Chris, we have a church building. Uh-huh. We got a bill last week that was $600.
Okay.
And this is a small church. We use, for the month that we got the bill, 40 kilowatts. And it had to do with bumping us up in our rating there.
Okay.
Because we pulled energy too fast. I guess we have 2 air conditioning units.
Yeah.
And pull energy too fast. Is there anything we can do with panels?
So it sounds like what you're describing is a demand charge. So that's the power company's way of saying, hey, the more power you need right now at any given time, they're going to assign a dollar multiplier to it, and that's your fixed cost. Will panels help with that? Yes. You can oftentimes go on to a rate schedule that no longer has demand charges. So what the utility companies are now doing is, let's say you put solar on the church, they will give you a 1-year period where they will evaluate whether the demand has actually gone down. And if they then see that, they'll allow you to go onto a rate schedule that no longer has demand charges, and you can just kind of produce what you use and virtually eliminate the largest portion of the bill, probably 85 to 90% or a little bit more. So it's something to look at, and it may make sense for your church.
Okay, very good.
Any other question?
Not that I can think of. I don't know how to ask it.
Fair enough. And just one last thing. Another thing people are doing is using batteries to mitigate demand charges. So the battery will then supplement when you start drawing higher wattage. The battery will deliver that power for those short periods of time so that you're not pulling it from the grid. But oftentimes those numbers don't quite pencil out as quickly as just a flat solar investment.
See, and I would think that's the question I would have is being as we only use through the summer or through the winter,
right,
anywhere from 15 to 20 kilowatts per month, how do we justify solar?
Well, and that has to be a decision for the board at your church. If the organization's not going anywhere and there's I mean, that has to be a kind of a case-by-case investment. But what I would say is give a couple companies a call that do commercial or small commercial solar and have them run some numbers for you, and you guys can look at what your options look like.
Glenn, thank you for the call. Appreciate it. 490-5858. One more, and then we got to go. Jeremy in town. Hi, Jeremy.
Hello.
Hi. You're on with Chris Moran.
I was just actually wondering what your guys' opinion is on using those Tesla power walls.
Yeah. So Tesla is the name everyone knows, and a lot of folks feel the most confident by going through Tesla because it's such a well-known name. I don't have really an opinion that leans towards Tesla or oppose it, but they've certainly.
Well,
go ahead.
It could be a similar system.
Right.
I was just thinking of having that availability of having a backup power supply on demand when it's needed. Say the need comes and
unexpected
systems go down, you have backup.
Sure. And that's for each family that's going to look differently. You know, you may find that there's a medical machine that you need to always be running regardless, you know, CPAP or something like that, where you have to have backup power. Sometimes you might find that having a backup generator is a much less costly way to have power on demand, but the battery industry is here to stay. And more people are going to adopt them and invest in them. But it is in the early adopter phase. So people who do it now are doing it because they like the technology and they want to have that power, or they have a specific need for it. So it's really going to come down to what your needs are. And you may think 14 kilowatts of storage power is necessary for your home. And your reasons may look very different than someone else's.
All righty. Thank you.
All right, brother. Thank you. We got about a minute here, Chris. The longer we've talked, the more I've heard ground mount come up.
Sure.
Are you selling more or seeing more sold on ground mounting?
You know, with how many rural properties there are around here, there's just a lot of opportunities for ground mounts. You know,
and the advantage is easier build.
It is, and it's become more so. And there's been some innovations made in ground mount racking that there's racks that don't require concrete. You know, you can penetrate the ground with a cable and an earth anchor, and literally the weight of the soil above it, and you can test it. It's really cool stuff. But I mean, if you're in San Jose, you're just not going to have ground mounts because the property is at a premium. Whereas in this area, you've got a lot of ag and, you know, people with larger lots, and they don't want to penetrate their roof. The cost difference really oftentimes is the distance of the trench. If you have a 400-foot trench, then your ground mount's going to be a lot more expensive than putting it on the roof. But if you're 20 feet from your meter and you have a tile roof versus comp shingle, your ground mount might be cheaper, actually. So it's just.
Do people ever decide on trench length just due to aesthetics?
Usually it's more the placement of the array. It's where do I want this solar to be? And some people don't care, and some people don't ever want to see it. And some people don't want to see it, but they don't have an option because they just only have so many places it can go. So it's really just got a case by case.
Good to see you, brother. Thanks for
you
being
too.
here.
Thanks for having me.
From Solar Negotiators at 844-OWN-SOLAR, it's Chris Moran, who's back, I don't know, in a couple months, and we'll see you then. And certainly here on the radio. Give him a call, guys. He has all the answers. 490-5858 is our line. We'll have the update on the Bullard High English teacher's arrest for 4 counts of rape when we come back following KMJ News on KMJ.